All right, so this is our last week. This is our last week of this 3-week session watercolor class. And I thought I'd show you, I've been doing a little doodling with and trying to teach my mom. She's 84 and she's never really painted before. So these are the exercises. Oops, I should show you this way. Yes. So I try to show her how to do this. And then after we were done with class, I did a little doodle here. So these are, I think these could be subject matter for future classes. You know, a nice sunset in Hawaii, and this is the same thing, just a different version. Except the rock is way smack in the middle. I realized it after I was done. And I want to also show you the example that I did in the acrylic class. So after the class was over, I did this version, which was slightly, the one that we did in class is pretty much the same, but the tree was different. So this is the landscape that I proposed in acrylic class earlier this week for the students to do, because we were also studying the maple sugar tree. But for our class today, I have a summer scene for you guys, something like this. So in this example, I'm showing two different ways to do the maple tree. In this example, I painted the leaves with, I actually used a tracing paper, believe it or not. And then I painted some of the branches in the tree trunk after. On this one, I painted the leaves first using a paper towel. And no, I painted the tree trunk first and the tree branches. And then after that, I painted the leaves with a paper towel. So we're gonna review these methods today. And I'm gonna also show you that you could do it with, I mean, you can always do it with a sponge, but you can also do it with either cling wrap or press and seal. So when it's time, I'll give you a chance to get, whatever you have in your house, be it, some saran wrap or press and seal or cling wrap, or if you have tracing paper, you can try that too, or, paper towel. So this is what we're going to work on today. Yay! Now, last week, I asked you guys, if you prefer to paint your own painting today, you can do so and bring your own subject matter to class. So prepare your paper. We're going to use 2 pieces of paper. So prepare 2 of these. And also, if in your house you have either press and seal or Glad wrap or saran wrap, so get yourself some of that, as well as, or you could use, what we're gonna do is this is tracing paper that we're gonna bunch it up like this to work with. You don't have to use all methods, but it's fun to try different things and see what you prefer. All right, so we're gonna start with this, but to do this, first we have to paint the background. So this whole section of the background. In the case of this example, all I did is a very, very light color blue, and it kind of disappeared in this area towards here. So this is our blue graded wash. And so we're going to start with that. And then we're also going to add like a little mountain, very diffused mountain here on the back, while the paper is still wet. Ha, ha. So note how the horizon line is right here in like 1/3 up. Try to avoid making your horizon line in the middle. It always makes a better composition when you have 1/3, 2/3 or the reverse is also true. So you could have 1/3 of sky and 2/3 of land. So in this case, I made the horizon line down here, which is what I suggest you do too, because the trees are going to be the main center of attention. All right. The first step to do our graded wash will be to wet our paper. So we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do our graded wash for this section. So 1/3, 2/3. And to do this, just because we don't want it to drip this way, I'm going to paint it upside down. So therefore, well, it doesn't really show what's up and what's down, but I'm going to start here. And this will become my sky. And at the end, I will turn it upside up, and this will be my sky. So I'm going to demonstrate, and then you can do the same thing using clean water. So I'm going to wet my paper. Like so. And the horizon line should be a nice straight line. So I've wet my paper. And now I'm going to use some of my blue. And note how I don't go with a very deep, deep blue. And I tried to add a little water to it, because the way that I prepared my blues has a lot of pigment in it. So this is where I'll have the darkest, because this is the top of my sky. So I'm going up towards the horizon line, and I'm done. So now I leave it. But because I want to add a little mountain, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my other brush. And I'm going to use, so I'm going to add a little red to my blue to make this color. Oops, this is a full one. I'm going to make a color that's like this. I don't know if you can see. Oh, here. So you can see there's a contrast between this and my sky. So using this color, so just adding a little red to my blue. Now this is too much red, so I'm going to add more blue. So I want somewhat of a purple color, and using this with a lot of water, I'm going to go here like so and create a mountain. Just a little mountain that'll go behind our, it'll go behind our trees. Now this mountain, just like a little valley. So, and I'm painting it while it's still a little wet, and it gives a nice edge that is not too sharp. So this is what I have done.
Okay.
And now you get to do it too. Yes. So we're going to paint with Saran Wrap. And when putting it in a ball, don't make it too tight. See, if I took a piece, it's maybe 1 foot by 1 foot, or I don't know, 16 by 16 inches. Anyway, I took a square of it and I put it in the ball like this. And I'm going to paint my tree, mostly the leaves, with this. And to do this, what I'm going to do, because it's really hard to pick up the paint like this in my little well, I'm going to mute you, Leslie. Yeah, so I'm going to put my paint right here. So if you have a large well, then you're all set. If you don't have a large well, it's a good idea to put your paint in a larger area. And I'm gonna start painting my tree with the yellow. And so I take my little ball, don't make it too tight, and then having a lot of paint actually is what is the best. So I'm making sure I have a lot of paint with water, and I dip my paper, my Saran wrap in this, and I'm going to paint with this. So I'm going to paint a tree over here. So this will create these great organic shape, and I'm trying to create the approximate size of my maple tree with this. I don't tap super hard on the paper. And now that I've put this color, now I'm going to add the green color to this. So on my yellow here, I'm going to add a little blue and mix it up to make the green. See, don't make a super dark green. And using the same Saran wrap, I'm going to dip it here, thinking, let's say the light comes from this direction like this. So I'm going to make sure that I save the yellow on this side and put the green at the bottom and on the right-hand side. So putting a little bit more. And I'm going to add even more green. Even more blue to make a deeper green. And this I'm going to, again, paint with my Saran wrap. This I'm going to put at the bottom mostly and on this side. So now all I have to do is add my tree trunk. And to add the tree trunk, I'm going to, in this dark green that I have on my palette, I'm going to add just a little bit of red. So that's going to give me a nice deep magenta-ish, purplish color. And with my brush, just going to add my tree trunk right here. And now the tree trunk, this lady is competing with me. The tree trunk is good at the bottom. So now see, I have my tree. And you could indicate some of the branches in between, but don't try and make the whole tree trunk appear. So you could indicate some of the branches like this, just a little bit here and there, but don't try and put too many. Just a few is enough to indicate, and the branches will not be completely full. Just a few here and there will be sufficient. So now we have our tree. Ta-da! So that's one way to easily paint the leaves without having to paint each one separately. And there are natural sky holes that appear. Now, in some cases, like I see here, I made this area of the branch, I find it a little too dark. So now I'm going to dry my brush, use a clean paper towel. And I'm going to lighten it. So lift a little bit of this dark branch that I put. I don't have to lift the whole thing. It's just a little too dark, I find. So I'm lifting a little bit of the color. Try not to lift the leaves too much. Make sure you keep your brush clean when you're doing this. Or maybe it's just too thick, so I'm gonna thin it. That's when you can see what kind of color you used. So I think maybe this one's still a little too thick. And that's it. So now I've removed a little bit of the oops, the camera doesn't seem to focus. There we go. There's also a spot here that I could clear it if I wanted to, lift a little bit of the green from that area easily. Just wet it a little bit with a dry brush. And there. So now I have this, and I can always, you know, paint back a little bit in some areas if I want to add a little bit of color here and there. But be careful when you do this, because the pattern that you have created by using the Saran wrap is a very random pattern, very organic, and you want to stay with this shape. So this is the tree that I came up with. So something that you could do if you're a little unsure in that you're going to actually succeed in producing the actual shape that you want, because you're painting with a Saran wrap, so it might be a little random. So you could lightly draw with a pencil, you know, the actual shape of the foliage that you want. Excuse me. And so that could help you. Another way to try and stay within a certain shape is you could use a cardboard and cut out a stencil, the shape of your tree. And then you can put the cardboard here and exposing the whole of the shape of the tree, and then tap with your Saran wrap using that tool. So that's one way that you can do this. But for now, let's just do it freehand. The next part will be we're going to paint the ground on this. So we've done our sky, now it's dry, and we have a little bit of a mountain here. For some of you, it might be bigger, some of you might be smaller. But it was painted wet on wet, meaning we painted this, or I did anyway, before the sky was completely dry. So what happened is that it made the edge, if it can focus, how come it's not focusing? Oh, yeah. So it made the edge of the mountain soft, which is what I wanted. So the first step to paint my ground is I'm going to first wet it, and then I'm going to paint it very light green. So the ground at the far away, and like in the far distance, should be a little bit bluer and lighter than the ground in the foreground. And the way that I recommend doing this is by preparing a little bit of green. This green will be very watery and bluer, more blue than yellow. So it gives me this color. Let me show you. So give me a very, very light color. So first I'm going to wet this section. Oh crap. No. I dropped a little bit of water there. Okay. So, and I'm making a mess. Oh my God. So I gotta go all the way to the horizon line. Make sure you don't leave a white line in between. It's better to go over it a little bit than to have a white line between your grass and your mountain. All right. So now that I've wet this whole thing, I'm having a problem today with this. Yes, it's all wet. Now I'm going to use this very watery color. It's a green that is quite blue and going all the way to my horizon line. I'm going to paint this color, making sure I'm not leaving a white line in between. And then I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to the color, and it's going to get a little darker. So a little bit more yellow to my color as I come forward. And I want to make sure that it's dark enough green in the front. So once it's painted, I leave it. I let it dry. And this is what I painted. There's a glare now. I don't know why. So I'm trying to show you what I did. And for some reason, the focus is not happening there. Okay. So this is how I painted this portion. And here at the bottom, it's a tape. So now you can do this part.
Can you go over the color for the top of the green again?
I'm sorry? This time we're going to practice the tree, and we can do it using tracing paper. So this is a tracing paper that, it's a sheet of tracing paper that I have. I've been using it to paint with. You can use wax paper if you have that. If you don't have tracing paper, I guess you could try with a regular kind of paper. I'm not sure the results. But anyway, I'm going to demonstrate this. And to paint this tree, I'm going to paint this tree as if we were in the fall. So I'm going to use yellow, orange, and red to paint this tree. And this time, I'm going to do a different approach. I'm going to paint the tree trunk first. So I'm going to paint this tree trunk. There's a little lint here. Okay, start again. And I'm going to paint it with purple. Purple is made from alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. So I'm painting it in the middle here. So the same as with the other tree demonstration that I did earlier, I'm not going to paint all of the leaves and all of the branches. I mean, I'm not going to paint all of the branches, just indicate a few here and there. Remember, the sugar maple tree has the branches, they grow upward. So I'm just indicating a few very thin lines. And that is so thin that it dries almost instantly. So this is my tree. And now that I've indicated, you know, some of the branches, not all, very few. Now I'm going to paint with my tracing paper. And to do so, I'm gonna first I'm going to paint with my yellow. Put a lot of paint here, on here. And I'm gonna also add some water to this. You'll see it's a little trickier to paint with a tracing paper. So I put it in the ball and I dip it in the paint. And now my paint is a little bit more watery this time. Because this is a little bit different painting with this. It's a little harder, I find harder to create the shape that I want. So this would be my first step. And then I'm gonna add, I do have orange that I've made from before. If you don't have any orange, you add a teeny bit of red to your yellow. I'm putting this, I'm gonna even add a little bit more red. So now I'm gonna use this nice orange and add the orange in my tree. Makes quite a bit of noise. Sorry about that. So I just realized I did not have enough paint. Now, oh yeah, that works better. Create some nice organic shape. And to finish it off, I'm gonna use some nice deeper red. So it'll be a deeper orange because I'm gonna put my red into my orange like so. And now with this, I'm gonna make sure that I only cover the bottom part and the side, thinking that, you know, the light comes from the same direction as with this tree. I like to use a different section of my paper to do this. I'm gonna go like this. Now I have a nice fall maple tree. And I could use a little bit more of the yellow. So I'm gonna refold this. And I'm gonna dip it in my well, my yellow well. And I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow here at the top. You gotta be careful when you do this because you wanna keep with the same similar kind of shapes that you had before. So there. So now I've painted my sugar maple tree in the fall. Now your turn.
Hmm?
So on your painting, you can paint a summer scene or you can paint a fall scene. Now, you also have a choice. If you choose to paint a summer scene, you can either paint your tree with Saran wrap or tracing paper. Or if you did not like either method, you can always use your brush. Now, if you choose,
Claire?
Yes.
What color is your trunk?
The tree trunk, I did a tree trunk. Well, in this case, I did the tree trunk using purple. So a mix of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. In this case, I painted the tree trunk after I painted the leaves. And the leaves, the last bunch of leaves that I painted was a dark green. So I added some red in my dark green and it made a nice different kind of purple. So that's what I used for this one. So if you decide to do a maple tree in the fall, like with these colors, you can still choose to paint it either with the Saran Wrap or with the wax paper or tracing paper, or you can use a brush. So it's not, one method is not attached to the color used. You can use either method and do your scene either way. Now on my example that I painted earlier, I had painted like a summer scene, and I had two trees, one that I had painted with the tracing paper and one that I had painted with the paper towel, actually. But on our scene, we're gonna only include one tree and the little house in the back. And we have the mountain, which will complete our scene better. So our next step is to paint our tree on our scene. So I'm gonna spotlight my table. And I'm gonna paint my tree. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna paint my tree on the right-hand side. So you can choose to put it on the left or on the right. Try to avoid putting it right in the middle. Just the composition will be stronger if you put it, you know, on one side. But you don't have to necessarily, you know, put it just in the half. So your tree trunk could be 1/3 from the side, like either here or here. And because I like painting with the, I really liked painting with the tracing paper, that's what I'm going to use. And I like to paint my tree starting with the tree trunk, like I did in the last method that we did. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I liked the fall colors, which is different from my other example I showed you. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right. So starting with a tree trunk, and actually I need to clean this whole thing because I will start with the yellow. So I'm just gonna clean this. There. Okay. So this is clean. And I'm gonna start with painting my tree trunk, and I have some nice purple here, so that's what I'm gonna paint it with. Now you can, to make this purple, I just used the alizarin crimson and the ultramarine blue, give me a nice deep purple, like this. It's almost black. Now, if I wanted this to be more brown, I could add a little yellow to it, to my purple, and it gives me a brown. But I like the deep purple. I like to have a nice deep tree color. I mean, a nice deep tree trunk. So I'm gonna use the purple. And starting here, it's about 1/3 from here. So the middle's here, 1/3 about here. And my tree trunk is gonna be quite in the front. So I'm gonna start it like quite low, like this. The part of the tree trunk is not very long for a maple tree. So if you want your maple tree to be recognizable, you have to remember these things and try to represent them when you paint. So the tree trunk is not very long before there is foliage. And now I'm just gonna indicate, you know, where my tree is. So this is my tree trunk. It's gonna be quite big actually. And I'm gonna indicate some of the branches, not too many. I apologize, someone's at my door. Okay, So I continue with my branches, my tree. So note how I don't necessarily do full branches because they are hiding between the foliage that I will paint. I will add on top. So this is my tree trunk here at the bottom. Some of the branches very thin, very few, and not complete because they will be hiding behind the foliage that I will paint. So now, because I ran out of yellow, just quickly making some more yellow. And I'm going to start painting my tree with my yellow. It has a lot of pigment, but it has to, oh no, don't do that at home. I dropped some yellow paint on my beautiful sky. Oh, well, maybe I won't put this one in a museum. All right, so I'm going to use my tracing paper, dip it in here, in this yellow, and I'm going to start. Painting my nice yellow leaves on my tree. Create some nice organic shapes with this paper. So I've chosen to do a maple tree that's in the fall, and the light comes from this direction. Oh wow, this is nice. I like this. All right, so now to my yellow, I'm going to add some orange that I just happen to have right here. If you don't have orange, you can add some red. So I'm going to do a little bit of it with the orange. Ran out. I'm just going to do a little bit more. Ooh, this time it's even deeper. Nice. Now, if you feel like you want to paint at the same time as me, by all means, go ahead. And now I'm going to add even more of a darker red to this mix. Gives me, ooh, a nice deep, it's like a red orange. It's not completely cold. And especially at the bottom here, I'm going to add these. And some here. Not too much at the top. More on the side. And now I'm tempted to add a little bit more yellow. So I'm going to go here in my little well with the corner here and adding a little bit more of the yellow leaves here. So now I've painted my tree like so. And it gives very interesting shapes. And you can still see some of the branches, but not too many, and that's sufficient. And because it's a sunny day, it's important to add the shadow for this tree. And maybe I'll add just a tinge more of the tree trunk right here in between. You can do so afterwards, but be extra careful because it could completely change everything. So because the grass is green, so to do the shadow on the grass, first I make a little green. Right here. The same green that I had there. So it's more of a yellowy green. And to this green, I'm gonna add just a little bit of red. So I don't want to contaminate my red. So I'm just taking a little bit of red, put it in my green. Ooh, that was too much red. This green is so strong. Start again. Green, a little red in my green. And now I'm good to indicate my shadow. Make it very watery. So the shadow will be sideways. And then with the foliage, grows a little bit bigger. Maybe a little bit more of a red color. And I like to, sometimes I just like to press like this. For my, there. So that's, remember the edge of the shadow as it goes away from the tree will be softer. So now I've also put this little shadow here for this tree. Now your turn. So I'll give you 10 minutes to paint your tree on this. All right, so this was my example that I have painted prior to class. Mm-hmm. And this was painted with the paper towel, which we did not experiment, but you guys are welcome to experiment it on your own after class. This was painted with the tracing paper. So for the painting today, we're only including this tree. We're not going to include this tree, but we're going to include the path and the little house in the back. Look at this, there's a little house in the back.
Love it.
Very small little house. And we have also included a little faraway mountain when we did the original background with the sky. So, to do the pathway. So now I realize this looks a little funny because I have a tree that's in the fall, but my grass is still green. But it does happen sometimes that even in the fall, the grass is still green. Not going to be too fussy about that. Now I'm going to include a little pathway. The little pathway is like a little curve like this. To paint the pathway, I just happen to have some red on my palette here. And in this red, that's like an orangey red. If I add just a little bit of blue, it's gonna give me a nice brown. If I wanna do a dirt road, see, I'm gonna show you the color that I made. It's kind of like a rust color. So that would be nice for my dirt road, but I want it to be very light. So I'm gonna add some water to this color. Maybe a little bit more of the blue. So it's going to be a little bit less raw and a little cooler in color and more watery. So now I have this color here. So this is the color I'm going to use to paint my path. And just so I don't mess it up, I'm going to put it flat on the table and paint it this way. So the pathway comes from way behind and it's very, very skinny here at the far way, and it comes sideways like this. So it goes very, very skinny. In the distance, comes sideways, and then it comes around, and it turns a corner, and it goes this way. So, oops, someone's making a lot of noise.
You sugar.
I should have. Maybe I should have muted you guys, but oh well, I didn't. So now I have my road that in this demonstration I've done this way. So up here it's extra skinny, very, very skinny, and then it comes around and it comes a little wider. And I did the whole road with the same color. And with this color, again, I'm going to add a little house in the corner here. So my house will be, let's say it's in the corner here. And it's a very simple house. So, and it's very, very small because it's way in the distance. So I have the house here and the roof. So to do the roof, I'm going to use this nice deep color that I have. I'm adding a little blue to it. And I'm going to add my roof. Like so. Ooh. And because the side of the house was not dry, it's seeping down. Well, I'm gonna go with this. And let's see that, let's say this house is kind of green, orangey, red. So I'm gonna add a side. It's kind of red. There we go. Let's be bold. There. This is this house. And now I'm going to put this flat. And I think the red is a little too red, so I'm just gonna damp it with my paper towel. And remove a little bit of the coming down this way. There. So now I have my house on the side, very small little house, and this little house feels lonely, so I'm gonna add a little bit of shrubs and bushes next to it with a little, like a little greenish, kind of brownish foliage. I mean, this is still the fall, right? So maybe I should do an orange foliage. So because this is more in the back, I'm making it more brown. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of trees and foliage here, like next to the house. Maybe I'll make it a little darker at the bottom and here. So wet on wet, I'm adding these other colors. So that's the house. And maybe the house has actually a door that makes it more of a home than just a house. So I'm going to put a little door and a couple of windows. And maybe there's a window on the side wall as well, right here. So there. Now, if I show you a little closer, I have my house with the little shrubs. And what's also missing is maybe there's a few blades of grass here in the front. So using some green made of blue and yellow, I'm going to add a few blades of grass. Oh, yeah. Just a few. And here, these are a little higher, a little taller. Grass is usually not all symmetrical, and just a few is enough. Don't put too many. And maybe there's a little bit of grass here too, next to the tree. Or how about here? There. And next to the house. Well, this house has got to have a way out. So maybe we'll add a little path that goes from the house to the road. Like so. So now our painting is more complete. But this looks empty here in this area, so I think maybe I need to add another little tree here, like so. So just add a very small little tree, because this is a lot further away. And so it's going to be more of the same color. I'm just going to paint it with my brush. Now it's a lot harder to paint with the brush than it was to paint with the Saran wrap. So now this is more complete. So this is our painting completed. Voila.